welcome to this free webinar on creating a daily routine that sustains you. There's a few people on the call who haven't met me before, so I'll just say a very little bit about myself. So I'm an occupational psychologist, and I work as a coach and trainer and a workplace mediator in all different types of businesses, from kind of engineering, manufacturing, to opera companies, to schools, to all different sorts of situations. And there's two areas I specialize in. One is around communication issues in the workplace. Sometimes that's about teams not getting on well or individuals not getting on well. Sometimes it's about just how do you have those difficult conversations, how do you deal with conflict. And the other area of my work is around resilience and how do you manage the pressures of life and work, and so that you don't become stressed. And obviously the two very much come together. And in terms of this webinar, it was interesting that when I put out the information to promote it, a lot of people signed up, which was great. And I was thinking, I hope they're not going to think I'm going to say this is the routine for you, because it's actually about how do you create a routine that sustains you. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. So what are we going to look at? We're going to look at mind, body, spirit. So everything to do with what nurtures and sustains us. We're going to look a little bit about the brain and change, is that, and what can stop us from changing, about how really knowing yourself and therefore what's going to be right in terms of creating that routine, and also what will sustain you. Kind of paradoxically, we're going to look at discipline and flexibility, and the importance of enjoying what we do, and the concept of less is more, and about the patience and perseverance to carry on until we start to see results. So first of all, before I say that, I wanted to say that there isn't one size that fits all. It's very much about thinking about what fits your circumstances. So there's all different people on this webinar, and some of you might be single and living alone. Others you might have family, you might have young children, you might have teenagers, you might be retired, you might be in all different circumstances. Also to suit your personality, and I'll say a bit more about that later on, because different people need different things according to their personality and your needs, and maybe your needs at different times of your life. Also just needs, I know earlier on this year I was incredibly busy. I had different needs in terms of what supported me than I do, in July and August, where things are a lot more manageable. So rather than thinking there's this one size fits all, it's helping you to think about what's going to be right for you. So I'm a great one for looking words up in the dictionary, and quite a long time ago I looked up the word support, and it said to bear the weight of, to endure, to sustain, to nourish, to maintain, and to strengthen. And I think it's about creating a routine, and that could be daily, it could be actually some things you do on a weekly basis, or even fortnightly or monthly. So there'll be a range of routines, but they really nourish, maintain, and strengthen you. And I think there are too many people out there who are merely surviving in their life and not really thriving. And here I'm talking about, all my work is about actually how do we really thrive in our life. So bear that in mind, what's going to nourish you, what's going to maintain, and what's going to strengthen you. And also think about mind, body, and spirit. So is that, there will be different things, and sometimes there's an overlap. So for example, I really like cycling, and obviously that's the body, and it's good for me, and I know it's good for me health wise, but it really kind of lifts my spirit. I get a real buzz from it. But also I'm very lucky. I live 5-10 minutes cycle ride, I'm out into the countryside. I love being out in the countryside. One of my routes takes me over St Mary's Fields, here where I live, and recently I've seen a lot of wild deer, and it just lifts my my spirits. So it's kind of mind, body, and spirit. It's just from cycling. So it's sometimes one activity can take a number of boxes, but in terms of thinking about a routine that's going to nurture you and strengthen you, is think about the mind, body, spirit. And as I said, you wouldn't necessarily do something every day that's going to tackle all of those, but that through the week you've got a nice good mixture. So think about that. just a little bit about your brain and change, because if you're going to create new routines, and I'll talk more about that later, is that your brain needs to be kind of convinced. So your brain is designed to keep you safe, and it looks out for risks and rewards. And I'm not going to talk about the risks. I do that one on my other webinars, but I'm going to talk about rewards, because the brain needs to be convinced of the benefits, and that it's worthwhile actually making changes. And so what I would do is, if you want to do, maybe you want to start exercising or meditating or writing in a journal or whatever else it might be, is maybe write down all the possible benefits to yourself. Now, if you have a family you live with, maybe to your family, to other people, maybe your colleagues, how they'll benefit. If you're in a better place, I can assure you your colleagues will benefit from it as well. And also, in terms of the brain and change, is we respond much better to what we really want rather than what we think we should do. And there's a lot of shoulds out there. Well, you should be doing this, and you should be eating that, and you should be doing this, and you should be being mindful and meditating and everything else. And it's finding out what you're going to really want and enjoy, and more about that later on. So list out the benefits and what you really want. And I think, and this comes back to this thing about knowing yourself and knowing your personality. So I come across as quite extrovert, but actually I have an inner introvert. I'm what you called an ambivert, so a mixture of two. And I certainly know is I need time on my own to recoup my energy. So I do get energy from people, but I also need, if I have too much of it, being with people, and my work is mainly with people, then I need that quiet time. I also, my family know, and my friends know, that if they go on holiday with me, is there will be at points where I just go, I just need, the morning or the afternoon to myself. And nobody goes, oh, no, she's being unsociable. They just know. I know that actually I'll be better placed to be in the family or with friends if I get that time. So understanding your personality, what drains your energy, what gives you energy. So think about that, and what's what kind of feeds your soul as well. And there's a thing called a zone of optimal performance. And if you're interested in this, I can send you a link to another webinar that I have I did and recorded that goes into more depth. I don't have time here, but the zone of optimal performance is where we feel stretched, but we're not strained. We feel excited and energized. And it's thinking about, well, what gets you into that and keeps you there, but also what might tip you over. And it's very easy that it might be that you've got this kind of perfect routine, and then you discover on your route to work that there's going to be major roadworks for the next 18 months. It frequently happens in Oxfordshire. And then it's going to add, 20 minutes to your journey. So do I get up earlier to do all my things that I want to do, or whatever else it might be? So what kind of tips you over, and how do you keep into that zone of optimal performance? So next, I want to kind of talk about discipline, and that human beings actually thrive on routine with a bit of variety. Now, obviously, we're all on a kind of dimension, and there's some people who just, no, I just want complete variety. But even they will unconsciously have some routines. So if every morning when we got up, we kind of went, now, what do I do first? So do I put my slippers on? Shall I go to the loo? Shall I brush my teeth? We just go mad and so unconsciously you will have a morning routine. Is that, who knows at what point that you would have created that routine. It's that we rarely kind of go, I don't think I'll bother brushing my teeth today. Is that, we have these things that we know that we kind of benefit from. And so that if you are it's building new things into that routine. And it's interesting, it's easier, or the research shows it's easier to create a new habit than to break an old one. And so, for example, when I'm driving long journeys, I sometimes get tired. I do stop and nap, but I got into the habit of eating sweets, and I thought, well, okay, I really need to stop that. But instead of eating sweets, I chop up and prepare beforehand carrot sticks. Get more than probably one of my 5 a day on my journeys. It's healthy, and it has the same effect as kind of giving me some energy, but in a healthy way. So rather than kind of, I should do this, I've got to stop that, it's about maybe how do you do it in a different way. Also, link habits and routines together. And for example, I do talk about mindfulness to my clients, and even neuroscientists say we need to be mindful of what's going on up here in order to manage our mind. And so we, mindful of our thoughts, the effect of our thoughts on our on our mood, and then our behavior. And so when I'm coaching very stressed out executives, or I coach quite a lot of stressed out teachers as well, is the last thing they want me to do is to go, what you need to do is, 5 or 10 minutes in the morning is to sit down and be mindful and meditate or anything like that. Is actually, for me, it's about how do you be mindful in your day-to-day activities. And that's another reason for having the toothbrush here. Is one of the things I say is be mindful when you brush your teeth. Be mindful when you have your shower in the morning. And I wrote a newsletter once called Who Do You Take Into the Shower With You? And because we're often so in our heads rather than in the moment. And I was saying this to one of my coaching clients, and she was a chief executive in an organization. She went, oh my God, I'm taking one of the directors, not just into the shower, but into bed with me. I don't even want him in my house, let alone in my head and in my bed. And so linking and coming into the here and now and being mindful, linking it to everyday activities. And I was saying this to one of a stressed out teacher, and she was saying, do you know, sometimes I can't even remember whether I'm in the shower, whether I've washed my hair or not, because I'm so thinking about the day ahead. And it's different if you want to sit down and plan your day ahead. That's different from actually I'm just anxious about it. Be mindful when you're driving to work. So is that sometimes that I remember there was one time, no, I won't go into that whole story, realise time ticks on. But is that one of the ways that in which I can, when I'm on my bike ride or driving, is I'll look out for a colour. And it gets me to kind of come into the here and now rather than the stories in your head. So discipline is really important. And it's one of the things that a number of years ago, I think it was 2013, I injured my back, or I developed back problems, let's put it that way. It wasn't structural, but it was muscular. And it happened in September, a couple of days before going on holiday. I couldn't go on holiday, and the insurance company wouldn't pay out. So I lost out on holiday and lost out on loads of money. And by November, having gone to a chiropractor and various other things, I was still in a lot of pain. And it wasn't good. I was driving a lot for work. It wasn't a good place. And loads of people said to me, do Pilates, do Pilates. Even a good friend of mine, Julie, who's a physio, said, do Pilates. So eventually I clicked. So I went off and had some one-to-one lesson on Pilates and had a series of lessons. But in the first lesson, I said to her, oh, sorry, I just noticed somebody's commented about the mindfulness, and someone said, I count the many shades of green I can see while I drive in the countryside. I like that. So thank you for that. So going back to the Pilates, is that I said to her, how often do I need to do this to actually correct this problem? And she said, really, every day. I thought, right, I don't want this problem anymore, is I will do it every day. And actually what I decided was I would get up in the morning, go to the loo, because you can't really do Pilates if you haven't gone to the loo, and just go and do it straight away. Don't get distracted by anything else. And I had that discipline, and it was interesting how, partly because I had a really big pull in terms of like the benefits I was talking about earlier on, in order to create this discipline and this new practice and this new routine. But I also want to talk about flexibility, is that not being too rigid. So what I said to myself, I will do it 6 days out of 7. I will have one day where I don't have to do it, at the weekend where I don't kind of feel, or midweek or whatever, I don't feel I have to get up early, because I was having to get up earlier. And so I went to bed earlier. etc. So I gave myself one day off. Now, because I've been doing it for years, is I might do it between 3 or 4 times a week. But I find that if I go less than that, then I start to get out of the habit. And so it's kind of keeping that up. But you find if you're too rigid in some things, is you just end up rebelling. And particularly some people have a very strong inner rebellious child, and you'll just rebel. So having a little bit of flexibility, but also to fit in with your circumstances. And I got my young nephews to remind me to talk about this, is that they are very tall now. They're 19 and 23 now. But when they were young, I either used to have them come to stay with me, or we went away together, or I sometimes looked after them at their house when their parents were away on business. And from the first time I did it, so I'm a Buddhist, and I have a Buddhist practice morning and evening, and I get them ready for school, and I say, look, I'm a Buddhist. So the youngest was 3.5 then, and I said, I'm a Buddhist, I'm going to do my Buddhist practice. And they kind of, oh, okay, can we come and watch? Yeah, of course you can come and watch. Now I would do it, first of all, fitting the circumstance. I wouldn't do it as long as I would normally do. I also, I didn't mind them interrupting me. The first time I did it, I had my youngest nephew going, faster, 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 because in my practice you chant very loud, a phrase very loud, and we laughed a lot. And I had another time where they were dancing the jig to my chanting. So being able to fit into your circumstances, but actually having that practice is not actually, on holidays, business trips, is continuing that practice. Because my experience is, if you start to waver too much, so you have some flexibility, but if you waver too much, you can end up forgetting to do it altogether. I had a client who I just taught an exercise about resourcing yourself, and she said it was really working, and then I went away for a weekend and I didn't do it, and then I didn't do it when I came back, and then it was a week later when I was really stressed and I remembered again and started again. So it's like, just do it every morning. It only takes a couple of minutes. So some of the things might not take long, but actually they will benefit you wherever you are. So discipline, but a little bit of flexibility, not too much, whereas you get out of the habit, as we are creatures of habit. So I wanted to say a little bit about less is more. Is that I'm a kind of firm believer of this. One is about setting yourself up for success. And I was reminded of the Couch to 5K program that a lot of people do and a lot of people talk about, and I had a look at it, and it's not something, I'm definitely not a runner, definitely not, cycling's for me. And I looked at it, and they do, I'm not, this isn't quite correct, but they do something like run for a minute, walk for a minute, or and it's like, they don't kind of go, right, get up, run for 15 minutes where you'll be kind of exhausted, whatever. They really start small. And why it's so successful is that actually they start in a very small way and a very manageable way. So I often say to people, start really small, rather than, so people say, I'm going to start meditating. I said, brilliant, just try a couple of minutes every day, because once you get the benefit from that, you'll then find the time and the energy and the inclination to do more. If you're going to go, well, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes every morning, unless you're incredibly disciplined, and the world your oyster and you don't have other demands, it's probably not going to happen. And to also is to create a kind of winning streak, is to what's I going to say? To keep a record of what you do rather than what you don't do, because it's very easy for the inner critic, and I've written a book about the inner critic, for the inner critic to start beating you up about what you haven't done. So keeping a winning streak, keeping a record, and also we get a dopamine hit every time we kind of tick off another time we do something. I have the philosophy of something is better than nothing. Now, I'm 56, so I've been around for quite a long time. And in fact, when I was growing up, nobody talked about exercise, quite frankly, which is why actually people are really unhealthy, and there's lots of people dying of heart attacks, things like that. And then the government kind of got onto, actually, we need to encourage people to exercise. And they started to say, right, I think it started off, like 20 minutes 3 times a week, and then it was 30 minutes 3 times a week. And you kind of thought, well, that seems kind of manageable. And then it went up to 30 minutes 5 times a week. And then it kind of goes up to 45 minutes 5 times a week. and that's great as an ideal, but it can be overwhelming. Is that, and it can easily, people can kind of get into thinking, you know, I love going out on bike rides and having a really good ride and going up hill and not dale. We haven't got dales here, but anyway, up and down hills and what have you. But sometimes if I'm really tired, I suffer from chronic allergies, or, you know, work's really busy, is that I've got one short, flat bike ride. And I have this philosophy, is something is better than nothing. And so I'll go do that. I know that it will energize me. And actually, it's better than doing no exercise whatsoever. So, you know, even a little bit is better than nothing. So really, the more you can have that mindset, the more I think it encourages you to carry on with practice. So I think the importance of choosing things that you enjoy, and just before I kind of talk through this, if you have any questions about what I've said, please feel free to ask any questions via the chat box. So I think choosing activities that you enjoy. So I did many years ago, I did join a gym, and I went fairly regularly, but I didn't really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy being inside. I didn't enjoy, I don't know, everyone around. I just didn't. And so when I kind of really got into cycling, it means, yes, I haven't got a very good upper body strength, but I love cycling. And when it's too cold in the winter, I'll go out for walks in whatever weather. So, you know, choosing activities that you enjoy, and also, and sometimes combining it with someone or something that you enjoy. So it's interesting, when I'm out cycling, there's a lot of us lone cyclists, perhaps more introverted. Then you get people cycling in pairs, and they're often chatting away. And then you kind of get in big groups who are just kind of whizzing past a very serious cyclist. And so, or doing combining it with something that you enjoy. So so with my Pilates, when I first started, I had to concentrate. You really do have to, because you got to manage your breathing as you do your exercises. Now I could kind of do them in my sleep. And so now what I'll do is I'll listen to TED Talks while I'm doing it. So kind of like mind, body, kind of spirit. I listen to TED Talks. I enjoy that. So sometimes combining, I always think anything combined with the Radio 4 app and programs that you like always makes everything more enjoyable. So think about how you can do that. I think also enjoy the journey. And celebrate the successes and the achievements of small achievements along the way, rather than think about it's only when I kind of reach my end goal. Because you might, you know, because that can be a long way off. So I think it's really important that to celebrate how many times you do exercise, or you do write in a journal, or you do are kind to yourself rather than beat yourself up. So I think that's incredibly important. So finally, or right near the end, is about patience and perseverance. Is that when you are creating new routines, is sometimes it takes time for results to come about. And I remember I started my Pilates in November, and my birthday is at the end of February, and I went up to London, and I went to the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition. And usually when I walked around that, my back would be kind of starting, even before the major kind of problems I'd had. And at the end of the day, I suddenly thought, oh, my back's been fine. And so it had kind of taken about 3 months for it to really take effect. So some of the things that we do will take time. Also, there will be setbacks and obstacles, and there's something called the hero's journey, and I can send you a link to a newsletter I wrote about it. It's something created by a guy called Joseph Campbell. And what it says is every time that you go and set out to do something positive, obstacles and setbacks will happen, and it's spotting them for what they are and carry on. And there's a lovely quote that I thought I'd include in here. It's a Buddhist quote, and it says, "There is definitely something extraordinary in the ebb and flow of the tide, the rising and the setting of the moon, and the way in which summer, winter, and spring give way to each other. Something uncommon also occurs when an ordinary person attains Buddhahood," I put inverted commas, "or tries to do something positive." So this happens you know, if you're trying to do something positive. And it says, at such a time, the 3 obstacles or 4 devils will invariably appear, and the wise will rejoice, while the foolish will retreat. And I think it's us recognizing that when you have those obstacles, is that it means you're on the right path. And you're like, if you're trying to exercise for the first time, you'll go and pull a muscle. Don't kind of just write it off. It's just learn from it. Why did it come about, and prevent it in the future. And so, and I was just was coaching a client yesterday, and something, you know, it's really hit the fan basically with her team, and we're on a kind of ongoing program. I say, no, this is part of the course. This is part of the hero's journey. Is keep on going, and you know, let's learn from this, and let's kind of, you know, carry on. And so watch out for those obstacles and persist, and you know, and persevere. So we've got a few minutes left. If anyone has any questions about that, anything I've said or anything outstanding that perhaps I haven't covered. So I wanted to kind of include in things that can help you to create your own kind of routine and bear in mind. And I wanted to say that in order to help you keep going, there's a number of things. One, if you register with my website, if you're not already registered, which is inspiretransformation.co.uk, that you will receive Melanie's Monday motivational messages. And so just as a kind of quick reminder each Monday, it's on all different kind of things, but hopefully motivational or thought-provoking. Have more free webinars as well that you'll find out about, and also I have a monthly coaching newsletter. What was I going to say? Also, I'm going upwards, I know. Free audits for individuals and managers and businesses if you want coaching or me to come in and do other work. And I'm also, earlier on this year, I launched a 8-week online course called Being and Doing. Has a different theme each week. Week 2 is about the hero's journey. Gives you lots and lots of hints and tips. It's what was I going to say? That there are a couple of short videos at the beginning of the week, and a workbook, and lots of techniques. And then there's input on Wonderful Wednesdays and Fantastic Fridays to help you to kind of keep through it going. And you have lifetime access to all of the material. And there's more information on the website under the free resources and shop section of the website. So have a look there if you want more support. I'm glad lots of people saying thank you. So thank you very much for joining me, and I hope it's been useful, and feel free to ask me any questions after as well. So have a great day and a wonderful weekend. So take care. Bye.